Hey everybody, it's the waitingfornextyear.com podcast. Wednesday morning after the NFL trade deadline, and that's what we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about the Browns. Unfortunately, we're talking about the fact that they didn't make a move, and I think that's a big mistake. Maybe it's not a big mistake. I think it's a mistake. I like Andrew Berry. I like the work that he's done so far. So this is not like, oh my God, what is he doing? We're doomed. He should be fired. We might as well look for our next general manager. None of that stuff. None of that stuff is in play right now, at least as far as I'm concerned. I just think that this team needed some kind of injection of talent. It needed some kind of sign from top management that it was worthy of investing in this team. And at least that's the way I think about it. The fact is that the Browns are 5-3, and you are what your record says you are. But the other facts in play are that the Browns defense was only able to force one punt in 2 weeks. They didn't force the Bengals to punt. They only forced one punt really early in the game against the Raiders. The Raiders beat the Browns in time of possession with a middle of the league quarterback and a middle bottom of the league. I mean, I'll give any of you $5 if you can remember the name of the running back that the Raiders used this week. You know, I shouldn't do that because I'm sure some of you fantasy guys have him on your fantasy team. But the point is, like, this was not Adrian Peterson. This was not Jamal Lewis with the Ravens back in the day, putting up record-breaking performances against the Browns. This was a Browns defense that was so bad in terms of getting off the field and on third down. They were being beat 4, 5, 6 yards at a time, not 7, 8, 10, 12 yards at a time. This is a Browns defense that for 2 weeks in a row gave up gut-punching, embarrassing quarterback runs of more than 10 yards on third and long. You know, Joe Burrow got one, and then Carr got one. That's not a defense that couldn't use a little bit of help. Now, I'm not talking about the Browns trading a first-round pick to try and invest in this team this year. This team is ahead of schedule. This team is not ready to compete with Pittsburgh and Baltimore. So it would be silly to push all your chips in for 2020. I agree. But I thought to come out of the trade deadline doing absolutely nothing, really not pushing your depth chart around even a little bit in the defensive secondary or at linebacker, I think that's borderline criminal. The Browns have been playing it's like the Indians outfield at linebacker for the Browns right now. It's a committee of mediocre linebackers, including I think Taki is an okay football player, I guess, but he's more like your special teams player. He doesn't belong playing full time in the linebacking core right now. They don't have anybody who can make tackles. They don't have anybody who seems to be smarter than the offense they're up against, who's pushing people around and getting people in the right spots. They're missing that leadership in the linebacking core, which they clearly had with Joe Schobert. And I've talked a lot about Joe Schobert since Sunday, and it's not really about Joe Schobert. Schobert's a good player, and he's a valuable player. He probably got overpaid. So I understand the idea of having to pick your spots and not keeping everybody and not paying everybody. But if you're going to let a guy like Joe Schobert walk, you've got to do at least a couple of things to replace him. And what we're finding with the results on the field over the last couple of weeks is that the Browns clearly didn't do a good enough job replacing him. And maybe that wasn't possible at the trade deadline, but it appears to me that they didn't even try. Now, I don't know what kind of talks they had and who they kicked the tires on and which other general managers they talked to, and whether they just determined that they wanted to keep, let's say, their 3rd round pick or their 4th round pick or some combination of picks. It just seems to me that, as Ken Carman says on the Ken Carman show with Anthony Lima, draft picks are ideas. When you trade a 3rd or 4th or a 5th round pick for somebody with an NFL track record, you kind of know what you're getting. And the Browns need at least a couple of more guys on this defense where they have a predictable, where they know what they're getting, and there's a predictable skill set, because they're just lacking in that department right now. They're really, really lacking, and it's obvious. It's tough to watch. It's especially tough to watch a team like the Raiders be so successful against the Browns on Sunday, because I don't think the Raiders are that good. I don't think they're particularly good. I think they're very beatable. Obviously, the Browns had a bad game on the offensive side of the ball too. They couldn't get out of their own way, dropping passes and failing to convert on their own. But that defense, I thought, was a bigger problem. The number of drives and opportunities the Browns offense had were very limited because that defense just could not get off the field. They could not force a punt. They didn't force any turnovers. And when this defense isn't forcing turnovers, they seem doomed. They seem absolutely doomed. And I know Andrew Berry sees that. And for whatever reason, he and the rest of the brain trust in Cleveland decided not to invest in the trade deadline. And maybe they've decided that that's a really poor way to build a team. It's not an efficient way. It's not an efficient use of assets. And I could buy that. I really could. At the same time, I think that if a pro football team, NFL general manager needs to use every opportunity to improve the team. Not in a dumb way. Obviously, we want the Browns to improve the team in a smart, efficient, professional way. But it seems to me that you got to use all angles, and that includes the trade deadline, which appears to be used a lot more these days than it used to be. And so that's one of these times where you can get a player with a 3rd, 4th, or a 5th round pick that was drafted higher than that, has proven that they're a professional in the league. And that seems like it should be some kind of an inefficiency worthy of building your football team. But not for the Browns, not yesterday. So, we'll get into kind of the outlook for the rest of the year. I don't know exactly how I feel about this team other than, I do think that they need to get healthy. I mean, obviously, I do think they'll get better as they get, what I should say is they'll get better as they get healthier. I think they've got a lot of potential to perform this season with the schedule they've got in the back half. I think there are a lot of teams that they can beat. At the same time, if they don't get healthy, if they don't get better performances from the defense than what they got the last 2 weeks against Cincinnati and Las Vegas, it doesn't really matter. And I thought if you were going to increase your chances of taking advantage of this super weak schedule, adding a player or two, at least one on the defensive side of the ball, made a load of sense. Now, maybe there are moves that can be made that weren't exactly in the trade market. Maybe somebody got cut or waived after the trade deadline. Maybe there are moves on the practice squad. I don't know. Again, I'm not saying that we should fire Andrew Berry or blow this thing up. I'm just saying I'm disappointed. that they didn't invest in the team this trade deadline. I thought they could have. I thought they should have. And I think if it turns out that this defense can't improve and doesn't play better, that they're going to be kicking themselves, because part of developing is having some success. And winning 5 games in the first half of the season is really valuable for this team in terms of their growth process. Getting to the ends of games and finding ways to win like they did in Cincinnati, while, you know, you can't always count on that, it's just to lose all those games could stunt your development, could stunt your growth, could lead to poison flowing through the locker room. And we've seen that time and time again in Cleveland. So I think even just investing a tiny bit in this team is also kind of like an insurance policy against that poison or that stunted growth, that stunted development. So we will see. We will see. Maybe the Browns aren't done. Maybe they'll make a move. I'm looking forward to seeing how they play against the second half of this schedule. They've got 2 games against listless New York teams. I'd like to think that the Browns will be able to handle most of their business in the second half, and I'm really looking forward to seeing it. Some Browns years, you're like, you get to the halfway point, and you're like, oh, we're thinking about the draft before Halloween, let alone Thanksgiving. I don't even want to watch this team anymore. I've already come to my conclusions about this player or that player. That's not how we feel about these Browns. We can't wait to get Wyatt Teller back. We can't wait to get Nick Chubb back. We hope that Myles Garrett remains healthy and see what he and Ogunjobi and Richardson and Vernon can do after the bye week, after a week off, against worse talent, against worse competition. So this is a fun Browns year. I told you this is a fun Browns year. The inactivity at the trade deadline doesn't change that, at least not for me. So that's all I got. That's all I got. Enjoy your bye week, Browns fans. Do something outside. We're running. If you live in the Cleveland area, you know we're running out of days where we can do things outside. So enjoy it. I'll talk to you soon. Thanks so much for listening. Oh, by the way, if you missed it, please go back and check out the podcast I did with Ray Flanagan. Again, he's got new music coming out on Friday. This comes out on Wednesday, so on Friday, on Bandcamp, he is selling a single song. It's called The Arsenal. I like it. I think it's got a complex Tom Petty vibe to it. He's one of the most talented Cleveland singer-songwriters, musicians that Cleveland has, and totally worthy of our support. I'd love to see him get a little bit of a bump from the Waiting for Next Year listeners. So go on to Bandcamp, pay a couple bucks, whatever it is, buy a song, and thank him for coming on the podcast, because I really enjoyed having him. He's a buddy of mine, but it was just really good to talk to him, and I hope you enjoyed that conversation. I hope you enjoyed the song. So we'll talk to you later. It's been the waitingfornextyear.com podcast.